La la la, hey, yeah, yeah.
Welcome back to Daytime, the perfect system of parenting. I wonder if they've brought this on particularly for me since I'm a
No,
young dad.
you have a perfect little child there.
Well, as we know, as parents, we're imperfect. So how do we get that perfect system of parenting? Well, two authors have written this wonderful book, and we are joined by their son, as a matter of fact, Jacob Kessler. Welcome to the show. And I guess,
Hi, Jacob.
you would be an example of how this system really works. Is that why you're here?
Yep. When my parents were thinking about promoting the book, they thought, besides other parenting books that have been out there and the authors go and speak about it, why not have the objects of the book and people that were sort of used with the system to talk about it and promote the book. So my brother and I are those going out and doing the interviews and that sort of thing.
Now, Jake, I think it's an interesting way of how the book came to be. Can you talk about your father and where he was and where he came to be?
Sure. My father was a very successful advertising creative person, and in fact controlled a lot of the production business in Canada within the advertising industry for many years. This is going back 20 years or so.
Right.
And then at a certain point when he got to the top of his career, he talks about this in his other book, a previous book called The Perfect System, he realized that at the top of his power, he had no power, he was powerless.
Right.
And so he tried to search to understand what was sort of the purpose for his life and try to find personal power. And he discovered it through an ancient wisdom, which he then sort of started to study, both he and my mother. And around that same time, they had children as well. So they started to apply that wisdom they learned in teaching us and training us and raising us.
Okay, you've opened a whole can of worms for me because we spoke before the show, and
Yes.
I know that wisdom that you're referring to is Kabbalah.
Yes.
And you're the first person I've ever met that has information, so I have a lot of questions. Can you give us sort of a basic idea of some of the principles that are the foundation of Kabbalah?
Certainly. And when I describe it a bit, it sort of is very parallel, runs parallel to the sort of the notions of the book, The Perfect System of Parenting, because it's just the same principles as they applied it towards parenting. So it is a perfect system, pretty much, in the sense that it is about the laws of nature, which are perfect because they're do not change and they're constant. And so everything, and really one of the basic laws of nature that it talks about is the law of causality, of cause and effect.
Right.
The idea that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So at the very fundamental level, it's about realizing the consequence of your actions and how every action that we do in our lives has a consequence and has a reaction to it. And so from that sort of foundation, at least talking about it in practical terms, how my parents raised us, it was sort of instilling within us this notion of consequences to our actions, and also ultimately that we are not victims and that taking responsibility for our lives and everything that happens in our lives.
So how did they go about doing that? What sort of practical things did they do to make sure that happened?
Before I can answer the question, one other thing to add to it, which will help explain it,
Right.
is that, and they discussed in the book, that the other as they talk about in the book, the purpose behind why they had children had to do with not because they wanted kids to like them or anything like that, or have something that would love them. It was they decided that they were going to have children in order to be there and be our spiritual as well as physical protectors and teachers. So because of that, their goal was only to create and form responsible adult people that would be healthy, lead healthy and successful lives. So with that sort of as the precursors to share with you,
Right.
so an example of that, because of that in their consciousness, that purpose behind how they raised us and why they had us to begin with, an example of how they would do that practically was how they would punish us. And one of the things they talk about in the book, system they had in place was the 3-count system, which was, and this was a system put in place so that the power and the control would be within our hands, not within their hands. So if I was misbehaving when I was younger, and this happened, they would sort of put the first finger up, which would be like sort of 1.1, which is sort of a sign that that this is your first warning. you can stop misbehaving and stay with us. And then if I continued to misbehave, which I did,
He says that with a big smile. I love it.
the two fingers would go up, which was a sign for warning number 2, which is, so now because you're still misbehaving, you can now go to your room and go to your room yourself. And when you stop, when you feel that you're composed yourself, you can join us and join the rest of the family and have fun with us, what we're doing. So I had that in my power and my responsibility. If I still did not move or didn't leave the room, then the three fingers would go up, which was the sign that now they're going to take me by the hand and take me to my room, and then as soon as I feel that I can come back and join them, I can join them. So by doing that, and I had to do it maybe twice, where I had got to the 3-point part where they had to take me by my room when I was young, and then after that I didn't do that anymore. They would just do the warning, and then I knew, because they meant it, that it would be fine. And by doing that, it made the idea of the power struggle. There was no power struggle. It wasn't about the older, stronger individual being the one enforcing something and being in power, and me being the victim. It wasn't about that. It was about me taking responsibility for my own actions and realizing the consequences of whatever I did.
You had the choice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And 3 strikes, you're out. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. I mean, obviously, they've done a good job. You know, you're an articulate, you're really, really impressive. I don't want to say, I want to say young adult, okay?
Thank you.
Having lived through this system of parenting, the perfect system of parenting, would you say you're an advocate and would raise your kids that way?
I think so. I think that at least I'm still a work in progress. I think I'm not perfect yet or anything like that. But what my parents have given me, and I'm really appreciative for it, is this knowledge and this system and this wisdom to be able to take responsibility for my actions in my life, to realize the consequences to whatever I do, and and especially not considering myself as a victim, that others are causing something to happen to me. Anything that happens to my life, it's because of what I do.
Well,
Wow.
Jacob, pass along to your parents. They've done a great job.
Yes.
Thank you very
so
much.
much for joining
You
us.
sold
Really
lots of books
appreciate
today.
it. Yeah,
Oh,
great.
you did, for sure.
It's called The Perfect System of Parenting, and obviously it works. We'll be right back after this.